Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me on Lisa Horton Crafts today. Dawn with you here as part of Lisa's design team. So today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through the duo dies that Lisa brought to you recently on Crafters TV. There were 2 sets of duo dies and there was also a Square Ornamental Die Set as well. So first off, I want to just run through the Square Ornamental Die, okay? Now there's an 8 die set and they all work independently if you want them to. So first off, if I turn the box over, you will see all 8 dies laid out for you on the back. But I just thought I would run through all the different pieces. So first off, you've got your backing matting layer, which is this one here. You can then add the ornamental square. I think this is beautiful. Now there is a right and a wrong way to mat these together. You will see if I try and mat that together, you'll see it won't match. Now if you look at this ornamental square, you will see that there are 2 sort of quirky little hearts here and then an extra tiny little circle, and the same on the other side. If you turn it over so that you're looking at the opposite side, you'll see there's only 2 of the little quirky hearts and no extra circle. So what you need to do is look at this backing piece and look for the pieces of card that match. So if you see here, you've got 2 little bumps here and 2 little bumps there, and they will match perfectly the 2 quirky little hearts that are on the actual die cut. If you turn it to the other end, you will see that there is an extra little piece on that backing piece. So you've got your 2 pieces here and the piece in the middle, so this is where your hearts are, and then this extra little circle bit here is this extra little bump here on the corner, and you'll see that if you match those up, the rest of the die matches perfectly. Alright, so you can have just those 2 pieces and put a design in the middle if you wish. You could use some leaves and maybe just a flower in the corner. Leave it at that, put a sentiment on it, and take the leaves off and just use a couple of flowers if you wanted to, then add a sentiment. It's entirely up to you. Or you could go one step further and use the square die that's in the set, this one here, and make yourself an extra layer. And then you come to the smaller square ornamental, and this has also got its own little backing piece as well. There is no right and wrong way to attach this. It matches all the way around. So you can add your matted piece on here along with your square ornamental if you want to. You needn't put the square in, you could just put those on the top. You needn't put the backing card on, you could just use the ornamental. I'd probably do it in a different colour, or you could just use the matting part for this little die and just use that. Entirely up to you, but we'll go with each die in its right place for now. So then you get 3 extra little dies. There's a square that will fit in there perfectly, then there's a smaller square that will fit inside that one, and you get a beautiful little heart which will fit inside the smaller square. Now the possibilities with this die set are endless. Now I'm going to keep these to one side because I'm going to use those a little bit later, but I just wanted to run through that ornamental square before we moved on to the others. Now, if I show you the die sets first, these are the 2 duo dies. Now they're inset dies, which by the very nature of their name means you're going to put them on a card and inset them into something else. They're going to fit perfectly in here, so you needn't use this smaller square and all these little bits. You can use these dies to sit inside here, and you'll see that in a little while. So there's 2 in each set, and you don't have to use them as is. If you wanted to cut the flowers out and just use the flowers, you can do. These will match perfectly with the TATTY blooms and the TATTY stems. They will fit perfectly into the urn, jug and vases die set as well. So you could just use the words. So there are numerous ways of using them. You don't have to use them as is, and you will get multiple uses out of 4 dies. This is my first card, and I'm using this double flower from the With Love set. Now what I'm going to do is I've cut my dies already, because you don't want to watch me sitting here running these through a die cutting machine. So this card I thought I could make really simple, but in order to make it look a little bit more special, I'm actually going to paper piece these flowers. So I'm going to stick my floral die part down first. I've also cut out the flower set in a darker blue, so that the petal outline is a different colour to the actual petals, just to make it stand out a little bit more. So I'm just going to go ahead and take these pieces out of here and pop them into here. Now that was really quite simple, wasn't it? So the only other thing I'm going to do is add a sentiment. Now these sentiments come from the TATTY words, okay, and I think they fit these beautifully. Now it could either be a birthday card or it could be a thank you card. I've cut them twice, and all I've done is I've cut the one layer in the same colour as the frame that I've used, and I've cut the other colour in black so that it gives you like a shadow. I think I'm going to use the thank you on this one. Now, how easy was that? Plain, simple, easy to put together. The only thing I'm going to do extra is just add 2 little gems in here, just to give it a little bit of bling and a little bit of interest. And I'm using Lisa's Super Sparkle gems, and these are the Midnight Sky ones. Right. Okay, so there's one. And the other one. That's your first card, totally done. Those are the TATTY words that I've used. Moving on, I'm going to use this one here, okay, and quite simply all I'm doing with this is I've run it through my die cutting machine with the square from the Ornamental Square die set. I've cut the matte in silver mirror card, and then I've cut the frame in white. I haven't cut a frame for the back of this because I'm going to use the back of the square ornament, and all I'm going to do is simply add that to my frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this into place. So that's all glued down. Don't worry about any little glue runs, you can get rid of those later on using your glue eraser. Brilliant little piece of kit that is. Now all that I need to do is just add this frame to my card, and I want to raise it up a little bit just so that it adds a little bit of interest, and then place it down in the centre of my card. It isn't going to need any other sentiment because the sentiment is already in the middle of the card. Okay, so there's your second card done. Looks classy, so quick to make. Okay, so that was the With Love die. Next one I'm going to do, I'm going to make this one a little bit special, and I thought this one would be ideal as maybe a wedding card. So I've used a piece of Lisa's beautiful glitter card, the Euphoria glitter card from the first release, and I've cut the square out using the square from the Square Ornamental, and then I've cut this one out in exactly the same way. I've used this die in my die cutting machine and put the square from the Square Ornamental round the edge, cut them both out together. So I'm just going to glue this down onto my glitter card. Okay, so then we've got our die cut stuck to our Euphoria glitter card, and even that just on its own I think looks fabulous. So then what I'm going to do is I've cut an extra square and I'm going to put that face down on my card here in the middle, and I'm just going to use one of Lisa's brushes with a little bit of tumbled glass oxide ink, and all I'm going to do is just gently brush off this square so that it gives me a really pale shadow. I don't want it to be too obvious. Okay, that's exactly what I want. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add two little swirls here. So that's added there, just to give the card a little bit of a lift. Now I've already added my double-sided pads onto the back of here because obviously I wanted to raise this up a little bit so that I could get these underneath. I didn't want to stick this flat, I wanted this to sit proud. And pop this down on here, making sure that I'm inside that blue ink frame that I've added to the card. I'm going to use one of the Super Sparkle gems. This one's from the Crushed Ice set, and I'm just going to add that into the middle of the flower. Nothing else, nowhere else. I'm not adding anything extra other than a sentiment, which I'm going to add in a second. Add that on there like that. That will stick perfectly. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to add my sentiment using my VersaFine Clair. So I'm just going to pop my sentiment down here underneath the die cut, like so. So that's your next one, and that uses just the single flower from the 4U set. So that's using that one there. Is one that I've already done, and this uses the 4U from the same set. Alright, now all I've done with this is, again, I've added it to a piece of Lisa's Euphoria glitter card. This is the blue one from the pack. I've added a gem, which again comes from the Midnight Sky Super Sparkle gems, and literally all I've done on top of that is used the stencil from the box kit number 3, and just inked through with some tumbled glass just in one place on the card, quite random. And then I've added another little sentiment from this fabulous set, which is the Sending to You scripted sentiments. Now then, my next one is a little bit more detailed, I suppose. So I'll just put my ink to one side. Now on here, I've used the padded quilt embossing folder, the 3D embossing folder. This has to be my all-time favourite embossing folder of Lisa's. And I've cut a piece of card, and I cut my card using the nested scalloped and stitched rectangles, and I've used the largest straight-edged stitched rectangle to cut that, and then I've embossed it in here. Now you can see that this piece of card is too long for the embossing folder. Please don't worry about that. When you put your piece of card in your folder, put it in so that it sticks out on the edge, and then put the embossing folder between your plates with this edge hanging over the edge of your plates, and then run it through, take it out, turn it round to do the other bit, and this will sit in place because you will find a groove in the embossing folder, and this will sit in place. Do the exact same the other end, so leave it sticking out, leave it hanging over your plates, and it will emboss the whole piece of card with no lines in the middle. Okay, so that's my backing piece of card. And then I've also used the Vertical Stamps and Coordinating Dies set, and I've used this little word here, this hugs, and I've used the larger of the flag dies, and I've added them together on top of one another, and I've just curled the ends up so that it just looks like flags. And then all I've done, I've cut the double flower in grey, and I've backed it onto a piece of pink card, and that pink card is the bottom flag on here. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and glue my die cut to my backing square. Okay, there you go. And then I'm using my piece of padded quilt embossed card to put on the back of my 5x7 card base here. But before I put it down, I'm going to use Distressed Ink in Picture Raspberry, and I'm literally just going to go round the edge of this card. Okay, so I'm going to actually glue this down, I think. Now remember, when you're gluing a 3D embossed piece of card, you need to be a little bit more generous with your glue, because your glue needs to find those recesses as well as the raised pieces. So I am being quite generous here with my glue, because what I don't want is for my card to fall apart as the recipient opens it. So that's just going down on the middle there. Try and get it as central as you can. And then quite simply, all I'm going to do is add this. So I'm going to place that onto my padded quilt embossed piece of card, like so. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to add this on the side, like that. And then again, all I've done is added one of Lisa's Super Sparkle gems, and this one is from the Silver and Gold set. I'm just going to add a little bit extra in there and add two of the smaller gems in silver, because they come in 3 sizes in these pots. There are 4mm, 5mm and 6mm, and although that doesn't sound a great deal of difference, you will see when you get them out that they are actually quite different. So it's so useful as well. Okay, so that's my next card, and that uses the double flower from the With Love duo set. Okay, so lastly, I just want to show you 2 quick little things. Now, you remember I said I was going to keep these to one side from the Square Ornamental set. That is quite simply because I want to show you how quick to put a card together if you've got very little time. I've cut the Square Ornamental die set, and I've cut all 3 of the squares and the small heart, and all I'm doing quite simply is layering these up. This is just to give the card a little bit of interest because it is so simple, and I'm popping that in the middle there like that, and then I'm putting the smaller one in the middle. And before I go any further, I'm just going to add my sentiment, stamp that into place, and then I can add my other elements afterwards. So I'll add these 2 pieces in here. And make sure it's in the middle, as it's quite so simple, you want it to look right. And then finally the little heart in the centre. Now, what could be more quick and simple than that? And don't you think that looks effective? Just something really, really simple. And lastly, I just want to show you that if you can't run to the Square Ornamental, but you've bought both the Inset Duo dies, you can still make a card and you can still make it look equally as beautiful. So this I have cut into a piece of card using the die. Now because this die doesn't cut out of your card, it will just cut into your card. What I've then done is I've drawn my lines round this square and I've cut them out using a pair of scissors, and then I've just rounded the corners off slightly, and if you had got a square it would fit inside the square, so you'd still see the stitching on the back of the square. But because I haven't got a square, I'm just going to put this on the card quite simply like that. But because you can see through this onto the card behind, I still want to add an extra little bit of interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that there. I've taken a post-it note and I'm going to do a little bit of stamping in this corner here, only very slightly. So what I'm going to do is hold my post-it note where I know my die is going to be, my die cut's going to be, pop that down there. I'm using the little splat stamp from Lisa's set of texture stamps, and I'm using distressed ink, tumbled glass, but I'm using the ink, not the oxide, because it will give me a deeper colour. Just going to use it on my hand because it's quite simply that random. And I'm just going to stamp this in 3 places off the edge of my post-it note. That's it, nothing else, just that. And then I'm going to take this off, because then my die is going to go there where my post-it note was. So make sure that there's no ink showing on the inside of this little frame here, so that it just looks as though my inking is done on the outside of that frame. I'm going to add a little gem in the middle here, as I've done on all my others, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I think I'm going to use, I might actually use the black, I think, just to be a little bit different. Yeah. And then all I'm going to do is add my sentiment underneath. Quite simply, positive vibes at the bottom of the card. So I think you'll agree that just with a little bit of thought and a little bit of time, you can make several different cards with the same die set that all look quite different but quite similar and quite effective. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Bye for now.